"You're useless, Mom. Sign the deed or leave." That's what my son shouted. On the same floor where he took his first steps, I gave up everything for him, my teaching career, my savings, my dreams, only to find out he and his pregnant fiancée were planning to sell my home while I was still living in it. The proof? A glowing email from a realtor sitting right there on his phone at my dinner table. But everything changed when I opened the locked drawer my late husband left behind. Inside was a letter and a hidden ledger. Watch this, and you'll see how I reclaimed my house, my savings, and after 30 years of silence, my voice. He smashed the painting David gave me on our anniversary, but I stood tall, suitcase packed, as the lawyer read my husband's words out loud. This house belongs to Nora, permanently. If you've ever felt invisible in your own home, don't scroll. This might be the story that reminds you you still matter. Before we dive into everything, let me ask you something. Are you listening to this in the morning, afternoon, evening, or maybe in the quiet hours of the night? Drop the current time in the comments below. I'd love to send you a warm, timely hello, wherever and whenever you are. I folded the napkins just so, but their silence screamed louder. Was my home still mine? My fingers lingered on the plaid tablecloth, smoothing a crease that wasn't there. The dining room glowed with pumpkin candles, their flicker casting shadows on the walls of our Virginia home. The scent of apple pie drifted from the kitchen, warm and nostalgic, mingling with roasted turkey. I glanced at David's framed photo on the mantel, his smile frozen from our last Thanksgiving together. "You'd love this," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the crackle of the oven. The air felt heavy, like words left unsaid. I adjusted a candle, my hands trembling slightly, as if arranging the table could hold my family together. For years, I'd poured myself into this home, sacrificing my teaching career to raise Evan and Maggie, cooking meals that carried David's memory. But tonight, November 7th, 2024, the table felt like a stage, and I wasn't sure of my role. The front door creaked open, and footsteps scuffed the hardwood. No knock, no greeting, just the rustle of coats. Evan strode in first, his eyes glued to his phone, thumbs tapping. At 38, he carried the weight of his failed startup, debts I'd helped cover with savings meant for my retirement. He barely nodded, his dismissal sharper than any words. Behind him, Maggie sighed, her gaze sweeping the room. "This house feels so old," she muttered, her tone distant. She was 35, still nursing the sting of my absence at her high school graduation, when I worked double shifts to keep us afloat. Grace, my 15-year-old granddaughter, broke the tension, her arms wrapping around me. "Pie smells amazing, Gran." Her warmth was a lifeline, her love for my stories about David a thread connecting us. Robert, my husband, trailed last, his newspaper already open. At 62, he was lost in his accounting world, indifferent to the cracks in our family. I'd supported his early career, delaying my dreams, but his silence now felt like another weight. "Dinner's ready," I said, my voice soft but clear. I carried the turkey to the table, its golden skin glistening under the chandelier. The plates clinked as I set them down, each sound a plea for connection. Evan slid into his chair, still scrolling, his face lit by the screen's cold glow. Maggie sat, her fingers tracing the tablecloth, avoiding my eyes. Grace beamed. "You made Evan's favorite, right?" I nodded, a smile tugging at my lips despite the ache in my chest. I served the turkey, carving slices with care, the knife's rhythm steadying me. "I made your favorite, Evan," I said, hoping for a spark of the boy who'd beg for seconds. He grunted, "It's fine." The word landed like a stone. Maggie added, "Mom, you don't need to do all this." Her voice was gentle, but it cut deeper, as if my efforts were a burden. Robert turned a page, the rustle louder than any response. My smile faded, my heart sinking into the quiet. As I passed the mashed potatoes, I noticed Evan's phone, left on the table, its screen glowing with an email notification. The subject read, "Property valuation." from a realtor. My breath caught, my fork pausing mid-air. Was he thinking of selling this house? My home, where David and I raised our children, where every scratch on the floor held a memory? I glanced at Evan, but his eyes stayed on his plate, oblivious. The meal dragged on, the clink of cutlery the only sound. Grace chattered about school, her voice a bright note in the gloom, but even she fell silent under the weight of the room. I cleared my throat, trying again. "I thought we could plan Thanksgiving," I said, my voice thinner than I meant. Maggie shrugged. "We might go to Sophia's family." Evan looked up, his gaze sharp. "This house is too big for you, Mom. Ever think of selling?" The words hit like a blow, my knife slipping, scraping the plate. Selling? This was more than walls. It was David's laughter, Grace's first steps, my life woven into every corner. I stared at Evan, his face hard, his greed barely veiled. He'd always taken my savings, my time, but this was different. This was my place, my legacy. Maggie shifted, uncomfortable, while Robert kept reading, his indifference a silent betrayal. Grace's eyes widened, her fork frozen. I forced a smile, my hands gripping the napkin in my lap. "It's home," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor inside. Evan shrugged, returning to his phone. The email notification glowed again, taunting me. My heart pounded, a mix of hurt and something sharper, indignation maybe at being erased in my own dining room. What makes a home? I wondered, watching the candlelight flicker. It's not just a place, but the love you pour into it, the memories you guard. Yet here, my love felt unseen, my efforts dismissed. I stood to clear the plates, my movements mechanical, the weight of their silence pressing down. As I stacked the dishes, my eyes caught Evan's phone again, the realtor's email still visible. My fingers itched to grab it, to demand answers. I carried the plates to the kitchen, the apple pie's sweetness now cloying. Have I ever been enough for them? The question lingered, unanswered, as I set the dishes in the sink. Back in the dining room, Evan laughed at something on his screen. Maggie murmured to Robert, and Grace watched me, her eyes worried. The email's subject burned in my mind, property valuation. Was Evan planning to sell my home? Evan's words echoed, serve or leave. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. Imagine building a life around your children, only to be told you're in the way. Think you know what happens next? You might be wrong, but if you're still watching, drop a 5 in the comments, because what's coming will hit harder than words. I stood in the kitchen, morning light filtering through lace curtains, their delicate pattern clashing with the sleek espresso machine Evan had plunked on my counter. The scent of coffee, sharp and bitter, drowned out my chamomile tea's gentle warmth. My fingers brushed the locked drawer in my desk, unopened since David's death 3 years ago, its silence whispering secrets I wasn't ready to face. This kitchen, my sanctuary, felt foreign now, invaded by Evan's ambitions. I reached for my tea tin, a chipped relic from a farmer's market David and I visited decades ago, but found Sophia's metal canisters instead, gleaming like they owned the space. My heart raced, a pulse of betrayal throbbing in my chest. I gripped the counter, steadying myself as the kettle whistled softly. Every corner of this Virginia home held my life, my sacrifices for Evan's failed startup, the nights I worked late to support Maggie's dreams, the years I propped up Robert's career. Yet here I was, 60, feeling like a guest. The door swung open and Evan strode in, his face taut with impatience. At 38, he carried the weight of debts I'd helped cover, his entitlement sharper than ever. Sophia followed, her designer scarf trailing, her eyes scanning my kitchen like a real estate appraiser. She was 35, a social climber hiding insecurity behind her smug smile. Maggie lingered behind, her face conflicted, her silence a reminder of the graduation I missed when she was 18. Grace, my 15-year-old granddaughter, hovered near, her frown deepening. Robert sat at the table, his newspaper a shield, oblivious as always. I poured tea, the steam curling like a fragile hope. Breakfast? I offered, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Evan didn't look up, his fingers tapping his phone. Sophia smirked. No need, Nora. We grabbed lattes. Her tone dripped with dismissal as if my cooking was quaint. Grace muttered, I'd eat Gran's pancakes. Maggie stayed quiet, her eyes darting between us. Evan set his phone down, his gaze cold. Mom, we need to talk. This house. It's too much for you. Sophia's pregnant and we're moving in. You can cook, clean, help out, or... He paused, his voice hardening. Move to a retirement home. It's practical. Sophia nodded, her smirk widening. A cozy suite would suit you, Nora. The words sliced through me, my teacup rattling in its saucer. Maggie shifted, silent, her hands twisting. Grace's frown deepened, her eyes flashing. This is my home, I said, my voice low but firm, like the creak of the oak table David and I chose together. Evan scoffed. You're in the way, Mom. You don't get how the world works now. Sophia reached into a cupboard, pulling out my tea tin. This stuff's junk, she said, tossing it into a cardboard box labeled Donate. The tin clattered, a sound like my heart cracking. Grace gasped, That's Gran's. Robert turned a page, his rustling paper deafening in the quiet. I stared at the box, my chamomile's faint scent fading under Sophia's coffee. Was I their mother, or just their servant? The question burned, raw and heavy. I'd given everything, my career, my savings, my dreams, for this family, yet they saw me as a burden. My fingers tightened on the counter, defiance sparking beneath the hurt. I wouldn't let them erase me. As I cleared the cups, Evan's phone buzzed, left on the counter. A voicemail played, accidental, a man's voice crisp. Evan, the house could fetch $1 million. Call me. My breath caught, my hands freezing mid-motion. $1 million. This wasn't just about space. It was about money, my home reduced to a paycheck for Evan's debts. I glanced at him, but he was already scrolling again, oblivious. Sophia hummed, sorting more of my things. Maggie's eyes met mine, conflicted, but she said nothing. Grace's hand brushed mine, a silent anchor. I moved to the sink, the water's rush drowning out the espresso machine's hum. My mind raced, replaying Evan's ultimatum, Sophia's toss of my tin. The voicemail confirmed it. They were plotting to sell my home, the place where Grace took her first steps, where David carved our initials into the porch beam. I dried my hands, my resolve hardening like the frost outside. I wouldn't serve, and I wouldn't leave quietly. As I turned, I heard Evan's voice from the living room, low on a call. We'll sell soon, he said, the words sharp through the open door. My heart thudded, the lace curtains swaying in a draft. What was he hiding? I stood still, the chamomile's faint scent lingering, a reminder of who I was before they tried to rewrite me. Grace watched me, her eyes worried but fierce. Maggie shifted, her silence heavy with guilt. Robert's newspaper rustled, a distant echo of the life I'd built. Evan's voice boomed, "You're useless!" My silence roared back. I stood in the living room, a farmer's market wreath swaying on the door, its dried leaves catching the soft glow of string lights. Jazz hummed from the record player, a gentle contrast to the tension crackling like static. The air smelled of reheated turkey and apple pie. Thanksgiving leftovers spread across the coffee table. Guests milled about, their chatter fading as Evan's words hung heavy. In my mind, a diary entry tucked in my nightstand whispered of sacrifices. Late nights grading papers to fund Evan's college, dreams deferred for his future. I sliced the pie, my hand steady despite the knot in my chest. The knife's rhythm grounded me, each cut a reminder of the home I'd built. At 60, I'd poured my life into this Virginia house, every scuff on the hardwood a story of love. But Evan's ultimatum from yesterday, serve or leave, still burned. His greed for this house a betrayal sharper than any knife. I glanced at the guests, neighbors and cousins, their eyes darting away. "More pie?" I asked, my voice soft, offering a plate to Evan. He snapped, "Stop hovering, Mom!" His tone sliced through the jazz and heads turned. Sophia, his fiancée, leaned against the couch, her smirk sharp under her perfectly curled hair. At 35, her ambition masked insecurity, but her dismissal cut deep. I set the plate down, my fingers lingering on the fork, willing the hurt to stay hidden. The door creaked, and Lydia slipped in, her scarf dusted with early snow. Her eyes, shadowed by her own estrangement from her daughter, scanned the room, sensing the mood. She nodded at me, a quiet anchor. Evan stood, his face flushed. "You're useless, Mom. You did nothing for us," he shouted, his voice echoing off the walls. Sophia laughed, a cruel chime. "She's just baggage." The words stung, my breath catching as guests froze, their forks mid-air. The audience in my heart, those who'd know my sacrifices, would rage at this. Maggie, my daughter, hesitated, her hands twisting. "Evan, calm down," she murmured, her guilt flickering. She was 35, still raw from the graduation I missed, working to pay our bills. Grace, my 15-year-old granddaughter, snapped, "Gran's not useless." Her fierce loyalty, born from nights listening to David's stories, warmed me. Robert, my husband, glanced up from his newspaper, his brow furrowing, a crack in his usual detachment. At 62, he was waking to the rift I'd carried alone. I swallowed, my throat tight, anger rising like a tide. Evan's cruelty wasn't just words. It was denial of the years I gave him, the savings I drained for his startup, now buried in debt. Sophia's laughter mocked every pie I baked, every memory I guarded. I moved to clear the plates, my steps deliberate, the clink of china masking the tremor in my hands. Can love survive such cruelty? The question seared, my heart pounding as I stacked dishes, Evan's words replaying. In my bedroom later, I pulled my diary from the nightstand, its pages worn from years of quiet confessions. I flipped to an entry from Evan's college days, my handwriting shaky. Another shift, another check for his tuition. He'll make us proud. The memory fueled my anger, a fire against his claim I'd done nothing. Lydia followed me, her voice low. "You're stronger than this, Nora." Her own pain, her daughter's absence gave her words weight. I nodded, my resolve hardening, the diary a testament to my worth. As I closed it, a torn page slipped out, left on the table earlier, not by me. Scrawled in unfamiliar ink was a note, "Check the ledger." My heart thudded, the words cryptic, pointing to David's old desk, untouched since his death. Who had read my diary, my private heart? I clutched the page, the jazz from downstairs fading, replaced by the pulse in my ears. Was it Maggie, her guilt driving her to help, or someone else prying into my past? I tucked the page into my pocket, my fingers brushing the diary's cover. Evan's voice echoed, "Useless." But my silence was louder, a vow to fight back. I wouldn't let him steal my home, my place. Lydia's hand rested on my shoulder, her eyes steady. The note's mystery gnawed at me, a spark of defiance in the dark. I stepped toward the door, the living room's chatter distant, my anger a quiet roar. Who left the note? The diner's warmth hugged me tight. Could I find my strength again? I slipped through the door of Lydia's diner, my purse clutched close, a photo of David and me tucked inside, its edges worn from years of quiet comfort. The air smelled of coffee and warm blueberry muffins, a cozy haven against the November chill in Virginia. The jukebox hummed soft jazz, its notes weaving through the clatter of dishes. A farmer's market flyer for Willow Creek Retirement Community sat on the counter, its bold letters, "Rediscover your home," catching the morning light. I settled into a booth, my fingers tracing the photo's frame in my purse, David's smile hinting at a legacy I hadn't yet claimed. I was 60, my teaching career long sacrificed to raise Evan and Maggie, but Evan's cruel words, "You're useless," still echoed from last night's gathering. My home, once a tapestry of love, felt like a battleground, with Evan plotting to sell it and Sophia tossing my memories aside. I rubbed my temples, the hurt raw, but a spark of defiance flickered, fueled by Grace's fierce loyalty. Lydia approached, her apron dusted with flour, her eyes sharp with the wisdom of her own estrangement from her daughter. "You're not their maid, Nora," she said, sliding a coffee mug across the table. The jazz softened, its melody a gentle balm. The bell above the door jingled, and Maggie stepped in, her coat damp from the drizzle. At 35, she carried the weight of our past, my absence at her high school graduation, when I worked to keep us afloat. Grace trailed her eyes bright but worried, her love for my stories about David a bridge between us. Maggie hesitated, her voice soft. "I didn't mean to upset you, Mom, but the house is a lot for you now." Her words, meant kindly, echoed Evan's dismissal, a fresh cut to my heart. Grace snapped, "Gran's house is perfect." Her defense warmed me, a reminder of why I fought. I sipped the coffee, its bitterness grounding me. Maggie's comment stung, but her guilt flickered in her eyes, a crack in her distance. Lydia leaned in, her voice low. "David left you something strong, Nora. Check his old desk." Her own loss, years without her daughter, gave her words weight, stirring hope in me. I glanced at the Willow Creek flyer, its promise of rediscovery tugging at my thoughts. Was my home a place or a feeling I'd lost? The question lingered, my fingers tightening on the mug as hope battled the hurt beneath my anger. Maggie sat, her hands fidgeting. "I just want you to be okay, Mom," she said, her voice wavering. Grace nodded. "Gran's tougher than anyone." I smiled faintly, their words a lifeline, but Maggie's earlier comment, "too old," gnawed at me, a mirror to Evan's betrayal. The jukebox shifted to a slower tune, its notes wrapping around us like a memory. I reached for my purse, needing to move, to breathe, but Maggie's phone, left on the table, lit up with a text from Evan. "Tell Mom to sign the deed soon." My breath caught, my hand freezing mid-motion. Another piece of their plan to take my home. The diner's warmth felt distant now, the coffee's steam curling like my rising anger. Evan's greed, Sophia's mockery, and now Maggie's unwitting role in their scheme. It was too much. But Lydia's hint about David's desk sparked a new thought, a possibility of strength I hadn't tapped. I stood, my purse heavy with the photo, my resolve growing. "I'll be fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Grace's eyes shone, proud, while Maggie's guilt deepened, her silence heavy. I walked home, the drizzle cold against my cheeks, the flyer's words echoing, "Rediscover your home." The hurt of Evan's words and Maggie's comment churned, but Lydia's encouragement and Grace's loyalty lit a path forward. What makes a home? I wondered, my steps quickening. It's the love you weave into it, the memories you hold, not the walls someone else claims. I reached my porch, the wreath's dried leaves swaying, and pushed open the door. The house was quiet, but David's desk in the corner caught my eye, its drawer slightly ajar, as if beckoning. I froze, my heart pounding. The drawer, locked since David's death, wasn't as I'd left it. Had someone searched it, hunting for the secrets Lydia hinted at? My fingers brushed the knob, the wood cool under my touch, the jazz from the diner still humming in my mind. Maggie's text, Evan's plot, and now this. My home was under siege, but I wasn't ready to surrender. Grace's voice echoed, "Gran's tough." And I straightened, the spark of hope flaring. Did someone search it? David's letter trembled in my hands. Did he know I'd need this now? I stood in my bedroom, the dim glow of a single lamp casting shadows on David's old jacket, draped over a chair, and the faded quilt on the bed. Rain tapped the window, a restless rhythm mirroring my unease. The room was cluttered with memories, photo albums stacked on the dresser, a lifetime of love pressed between their pages. I clutched the ledger, its worn cover untouched since David's death, its weight hinting at a savings account he'd hidden. My heart raced, the note from my torn diary, "Check the ledger," still burning in my pocket. At 60, I'd given everything to this Virginia home, sacrificing my teaching career for Evan and Maggie, pouring my savings into Evan's failed startup. But Evan's cruel words, "You're useless," and Sophia's toss of my tea tin had carved a wound that festered. The ajar desk drawer I'd found yesterday sparked hope, Lydia's encouragement echoing, "David left you something strong." I knelt by the desk, my fingers prying open the ledger, the creak of its spine like a door to my past. Inside, a letter in David's neat script waited, folded tightly. "The house and savings are yours, Nora. Stay free," it read. My breath caught, hope surging, a shield against Evan's betrayal. The door slammed open, jarring the quiet. Evan stormed in, his face twisted with impatience. At 38, his debts loomed, his greed for my home a noose around us both. "Sign the deed, Mom, or else!" he barked, his voice a lash. The rain's tap grew louder, a drumbeat to my anger. Maggie slipped in behind him, her eyes shadowed with guilt from missing my sacrifices, like the graduation I worked through to pay our bills. "What's in the ledger, Mom?" she asked softly, her question a tentative bridge. I hid the letter behind the ledger, my hands tense, my heart a battleground of hope and hurt. Evan's demand, "Sign it now," echoed Sophia's ultimatum to serve or leave, their words a chorus of dismissal. My fingers tightened on the ledger, David's words, "Stay free," a lifeline. Maggie's hesitation stirred her remorse, a crack in our distance, but Evan's aggression drowned it out. The audience in my heart would rage at his cruelty, his denial of the years I gave him. I stood, my voice low. "Not yet, Evan." His eyes narrowed, his impatience a storm brewing. Grace tiptoed in, her 15-year-old frame small but fierce. "You're so strong, Gran," she whispered, her admiration born from nights curled up with David's stories, a generational anchor. Robert, 62, glanced up from his book in the corner, his brow furrowing, a flicker of awareness breaking his detachment. He'd built his career on my support, yet his silence had long been my burden. His unease now, though slight, fanned my resolve. I tucked the letter into my pocket, my anger at Evan's pressure mingling with the empowerment David's words gave me. As Evan paced, muttering, I flipped through the ledger, my fingers brushing an old email printout, creased and yellowed. It was from David to his lawyer, dated a year before his death, mentioning a secure account. My pulse quickened, the words a new piece of his legacy, a secret Evan and Sophia didn't know. Did David see their betrayal coming? The question seared, my eyes darting to Evan, his face hard, oblivious to the power I held. Maggie watched, her guilt deepening, while Grace's smile steadied me. Robert's book rustled, a faint acknowledgement of the shift in the room. I closed the ledger, its weight grounding me. I need time, I said, my voice firm, the letter's promise. Stay free, a vow I'd keep. Evan scoffed. Don't play games, Mom. He stormed out, the door rattling, Maggie trailing, her eyes apologetic. Grace hugged me, her warmth a spark of hope. Robert set his book down, his gaze lingering, a silent question forming. I moved to the window, the rain's rhythm slowing, my anger fueling a resolve to protect my home, my legacy. What makes a legacy? I thought, my fingers brushing the quilt David and I picked out together. It's not just money or a house. It's the freedom to choose your path, the love you leave behind. David's letter and email gave me that choice, a strength Evan couldn't touch. I turned, ready to face the fight, when voices drifted from downstairs. Evan and Sophia, their whispers sharp. We need to find that account, Sophia said, her tone urgent. My heart thudded, the email printout heavy in my pocket. Do they know about the savings? I stood frozen. The rain's soft patter fading, the bedroom's memories wrapping around me. Grace's whisper, you're strong, and Maggie's question about the ledger echoed, a chorus of support against Evan's threat. Robert's uneasy glance lingered in my mind, a crack in his indifference. The whispers below grew quieter, but their intent was clear. They were hunting for David's secret, my shield. I clutched the letter, my resolve a quiet fire, ready to reclaim my place. Who was listening downstairs, plotting against me? I dialed Willow Creek, my voice steady. Was this my way out? The rotary phone's click echoed in the guest room, now my refuge, its single lamp casting a warm glow. Rain pattered outside, a soft hum of defiance matching the resolve in my chest. A coffee shop mug from a family trip sat on the desk, its chipped rim a reminder of better days. In the closet, David's old leather suitcase waited, dusty but sturdy, ready for a journey I was only beginning to imagine. At 60, I'd given my life to this Virginia home, but Evan's demands and Sophia's cruelty had pushed me to the edge. David's letter, hidden in my pocket, urged me to stay free. I perched on the bed's edge, the phone's cord twisting in my fingers. Willow Creek Retirement Community, a woman answered, her voice calm. I'd like a suite, I said, my heart pounding with purpose. Move in by Thanksgiving, she replied, detailing a cozy space with a garden view. I pictured myself there, away from Evan's greed, Sophia's smirks, and the weight of my family's disregard. My anger stoked by Evan's "you're useless" and his plot to sell my home hardened into resolve. I hung up, the rain's rhythm a quiet cheer for my rebellion. The door creaked, and Sophia sauntered in, her eyes sweeping the room like she already owned it. At 35, her confidence masked insecurity, her designer boots clicking on the hardwood. She spotted my quilt, hand-stitched with David, draped over a chair. "This is so dated," she smirked, tossing it to the floor. "It won't fit our nursery." The fabric crumpled, a wound to my heart, her words echoing Evan's ultimatum to serve or leave. My fingers clenched, but I forced a tight smile, hiding the suitcase behind the door. Maggie slipped in, her face shadowed with guilt from our past, my missed graduation haunting her. "I'll help organize, Mom," she offered, her voice tentative, a step toward mending our rift. Sophia's mockery stung, a fresh layer of conflict over Evan's pressure. I knelt to retrieve the quilt, its soft threads grounding me, my anger simmering. Maggie's offer, though small, was a lifeline. Her remorse a crack in the wall between us. I straightened, the suitcase's presence a secret vow to resist their control. Can I leave without breaking my heart? The question pulsed, my resolve a shield against the hurt of Sophia's toss and Evan's betrayal. Maggie lingered, her hands fidgeting. "I didn't mean what I said at the diner," she murmured, referencing her too-old comment. I nodded, my throat tight, her guilt a mirror to my own regrets. Sophia huffed, "This room's a mess," and left, her boots echoing down the hall. I tucked the quilt away, my fingers brushing David's photo in my purse, its weight a promise of strength. The rain's patter softened, a whisper of hope as I planned my escape. The phone rang, jarring the quiet. Lydia's voice crackled through, "You're taking your life back, Nora." At 58, her estrangement from her daughter gave her words power, her encouragement a spark to my courage. "I'm doing it," I said, my voice firm, the Willow Creek suite a beacon. Grace slipped in, her 15-year-old eyes bright with devotion. "I'll visit you, Gran," she promised, her love for my David stories a bond no one could break. "You're my hero," she added, her hug a burst of warmth. I packed David's photo into the suitcase, my resolve as solid as the leather's worn handle. As I zipped the suitcase, Maggie's phone, left on the desk, lit up, a recording playing by accident. Evan's voice, sharp and greedy, cut through. "We'll get the savings too." My breath hitched, my hands freezing. Savings? Did he mean David's hidden account, mentioned in the ledger's email? The recording confirmed their plan. Not just my home, but every piece of my legacy was their target. My anger flared, a fire against their entitlement, but Grace's promise and Lydia's call steadied me. I hid the suitcase deeper in the closet, my heart racing with purpose. What makes a rebellion? It's not loud battles, but quiet choices, the strength to walk away from those who'd break you. David's suitcase, packed with his photo, was my first step, a symbol of my fight to stay free. I moved to the desk, the coffee mug's chip catching the lamp's light, a reminder of family trips now tainted by Evan's greed. Maggie watched, her offer to help a fragile bridge, while Grace's devotion was my anchor. Lydia's voice lingered, a call to courage I wouldn't ignore. I opened my laptop to confirm Willow Creek's details, the rain's hum a backdrop to my resolve. An email from the community appeared, but my heart stopped. Evan's name was CC'd. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, the screen's glow harsh. Had he intercepted it, spying on my plan? The recording's words, "We'll get the savings," echoed, a warning of their reach. I closed the laptop, the suitcase's shadow looming, my resolve a quiet roar. Did he know I was leaving? Evan's hand smashed my painting, my past. Could I still stand? The living room was a mess of Sophia's baby gear, diaper bags, a sleek crib, clashing with the Thanksgiving remnants, a wilted farmer's market wreath on the door. A jazz record spun softly, its notes skipping as rain pounded outside, echoing the storm in my chest. The torn diary page from days ago urging me to check David's ledger flickered in my mind, a signal of strength I hadn't yet claimed. At 60, I'd poured my life into this Virginia home, sacrificing my teaching career for Evan's future, but his cruelty now threatened to erase me. I stood by the mantel, dusting a landscape painting David gave me, its rolling hills a memory of our first anniversary. My fingers lingered on the frame, the wood worn smooth, a tether to the love we built. Evan's ultimatum, serve or leave, and Sophia's toss of my tea tin had ignited anger. But this painting was sacred, a piece of David no one could touch. The jazz record's melody faltered, the needle catching as Evan stormed in, his face flushed with arrogance. "Sign the deed, Mom," he barked, his voice cutting through the rain's drumbeat. At 38, his failed startup and debts fueled his desperation, my savings long drained to prop him up. If someone smashed the last thing your late husband gave you just to prove you were nothing, what would you do next? This part still stings to tell. If you're still here, drop a 6 in the comments. Because this is where everything changed. Before I could respond, he grabbed the painting, his hands rough. "This junk's worthless," he yelled, smashing it against the wall. The frame splintered, the canvas tearing, a sound like my heart ripping. Sophia, lounging on the couch, laughed, her voice sharp. "It's just clutter," she said, her 35-year-old ambition masking insecurity. The guests, neighbors, cousins, froze, their murmurs dying. Maggie gasped, "Evan, stop!" Her 35 years carried the weight of our past, my absence at her graduation a lingering wound, but her guilt now shone through. Grace, 15 and fierce, shouted, "That was Gran's!" Her loyalty, born from nights hearing David's stories, was a beacon in the chaos. Robert, 62, looked up from his newspaper, his brow creasing, a crack in his detachment after years of my support for his career. The shattered painting lay at my feet, its colors smeared. Anger surged, a fire against Evan's cruelty, Sophia's mockery a spark to my resolve. I knelt, my hands trembling, gathering the broken pieces, each shard a memory of David's quiet love. Maggie's gasp and Grace's shout fueled me, while Robert's uneasy glance hinted at his awakening. Sophia's laughter rang, a cruel echo, but I wouldn't break. The audience in my heart, those who'd know my sacrifices, would rage at this destruction, urging me to fight. Lydia slipped through the door, her scarf damp, her eyes sharp with the pain of her own estrangement. "You're not this, Nora," she whispered, her voice steady, cutting through the jazz's faltering notes. Her words, born from losing her daughter, landed like a lifeline. I stood, my anger hardening into resolve, the diary page's hint, "Check the ledger," a call to action. I slipped into the hall, dialing Samuel Carter, my lawyer, on the rotary phone. Transfer the property, I said, my voice firm, the rain's rhythm a backdrop to my defiance. Samuel's calm, "It'll be done," sealed my decision. In the kitchen, clearing dishes to steady myself, I spotted a torn photo of the painting in the trash. Maggie's handwriting scrawled across it. "I'm sorry, Mom." My breath caught, her apology a bridge over our fractured past, her guilt a step toward reconciliation. The jazz record stopped, the silence heavy, but Lydia's whisper echoed, "You're stronger." Grace's fierce defense and Maggie's note were anchors, while Robert's unease hinted at a shift. Evan's destruction wasn't just a painting, it was my past, my sacrifices, denied for his greed. What makes strength? It's not just enduring, but choosing to rise, to claim what's yours despite the pain. David's ledger, waiting in my bedroom, held the key to my freedom, a legacy Evan couldn't shatter. I tucked the photo into my pocket, my fingers brushing the broken frame splinters, my resolve a quiet fire. The rain's pounding softened, but Evan's voice carried from the living room, low and urgent on a call. "We'll find that account," he said, the words sharp through the open door. My heart thudded, Maggie's note and Samuel's promise heavy in my mind. What else were they after? I stood in the hall, the wreath's faint cedar scent mixing with the rain's damp chill. Lydia's support, Maggie's guilt, and Grace's loyalty wove a net around me, holding me upright. Robert's glance lingered in my memory, a sign he might yet see me. Evan's greed and Sophia's mockery were a storm, but I was no longer adrift. The ledger waited, its secrets my shield, my anger now a steady resolve to reclaim my place. Who was listening, plotting to take more? Evan's voice thundered, "Get out!" My suitcase waited. Was I ready to fight? I stood in the kitchen, its chaos a mirror to my heart. Sophia's gleaming gadgets and baby supplies crowding my wooden spoons and chipped plates. Thunder rumbled outside, a deep growl matching the tension coiling in my chest. A coffee shop mug from a family trip sat untouched on the counter, its faded logo a ghost of happier days. David's letter from his ledger, affirming my control over the house and savings, burned in my mind, a quiet vow to stand my ground. At 60, I'd given everything to this Virginia home, but Evan's greed and Sophia's cruelty pushed me to the edge. I poured chamomile tea, the kettle's whistle a faint anchor as I steadied my trembling hands. The rain's roar through the open window drowned out the soft tick of the clock, but not the memory of Evan's smashed painting, David's gift, now shards in the trash, his demand to sign the deed, Sophia's mocking laughter, and their hunt for David's savings account had ignited a fire in me, anger hardening into resolve. I sipped the tea, its warmth no match for the storm within, my suitcase packed and hidden in the guest room, ready for Willow Creek. The door banged open and Evan stormed in, his face twisted with fury. At 38, his debts from a failed startup loomed, my sacrifices, savings drained, a teaching career abandoned, fueling his entitlement. "Sign it or get out," he roared, slamming his fist on the counter. The mug rattled, thunder cracking outside, amplifying the menace in his voice. I set the teacup down, my hands steady now, David's words. "Stay free, a shield." "I'm not signing," I said, my voice low, defiant. Sophia sauntered in, her arms crossed, her 35-year-old confidence cracking under pressure. "She's useless," she sneered, her voice sharp, though her eyes darted nervously. Her social climbing masked insecurity, but her words cut deep, echoing Evan's "You're useless" from the family gathering. Maggie followed, her face etched with guilt from our fractured past, my absence at her graduation, working to keep us afloat. "You're wrong, Evan," she snapped, her 35 years of resentment giving way to protectiveness. Robert, 62, stirred from his chair, his newspaper folding, his brow furrowed. "Enough," he said, his voice rough, a rare break from his detachment after years of my support. Grace, 15, clung to my arm, her fierce loyalty shining. "Don't go, Gran," she pleaded, her love for my David stories a bond no one could break. Evan stepped closer, his breath hot with rage. "Get out, or I'll make you leave," he shouted, shoving my shoulder. The force jolted me, my hip grazing the counter, pain flaring but not as sharp as the betrayal. Sophia smirked. "You're in our way." The physical escalation, paired with their verbal abuse, would make any heart rage, the audience's indignation fueling my resistance. I steadied myself, my eyes locked on Evans, my resolve a steel rod. "This is my home," I said, each word a hammer. Lydia arrived, her coat dripping, her 58-year-old eyes sharp with the pain of her daughter's estrangement. "Stand tall, Nora," she urged, her voice cutting through the thunder's growl. Her encouragement, rooted in her own loss, was a spark to my courage. Maggie's defense and Robert's intervention fanned it, while Grace's grip anchored me. Evan's shove wasn't just an attack, it was a denial of my sacrifices, my love, my place. I turned to the guest room, Lydia following, my steps deliberate, the coffee mug's stillness a contrast to the storm outside. In the quiet of the guest room, I pulled David's suitcase from the closet, its leather creaking. I sat at the desk, the rain's rhythm softening, and wrote a letter detailing the property transfer and financial cutoff, my pen steady. "Evan and Sophia, you're done taking," I wrote. David's photo beside me, his smile a vow kept. Is family worth this pain? The question seared, my resolve a shield against Evan's abuse, Sophia's sneers, and the weight of their greed. I folded the letter, tucking it into my purse, the suitcase packed with essentials. David's photo, my quilt, my strength. Maggie slipped in, her eyes red. "I found this," she whispered, handing me her phone. A recording played, Evan's voice cold. "The house is ours once she's gone." My breath caught, the realtor's words confirming their plan to expel me, to claim my home and David's savings. Maggie's guilt, her offer to help, deepened her redemption, a bridge over our past. "I'm sorry, Mom," she said, her voice breaking. I nodded, my heart softening but firm, the recording a weapon for my fight. What makes a stand? It's not just defiance, but choosing your worth, even when family turns against you. David's letter gave me power. Maggie's recording gave me proof, and Lydia's words gave me courage. I zipped the suitcase, Grace's plea, "Don't go!" and Robert's "Enough," echoing in my mind. The kitchen's chaos waited, but I was no longer its prisoner. I returned to the hall, my purse heavy with the letter, when Sophia's whisper drifted from the living room. "Check her room." My heart thudded, the recording's threat and the letter's promise heavy. Were they searching for it? I paused, the thunder fading, the coffee mug's stillness a quiet defiance. Lydia's hand brushed mine, Maggie's eyes held remorse, and Grace's loyalty shone. Robert's awakening, though slow, was a spark. Evan's shove and Sophia's sneer were a storm, but I was its center, my resolve a fire no rain could douse. The letter in my purse was my stand, my suitcase my freedom, and the whispers below a warning. I stepped forward, ready to face them, my heart a drum of defiance. Were they closing in? I faced them, letter in hand, suitcase ready. Would they ever see me? The dining room's candlelight flickered, casting shadows across the table laden with apple pie and roasted vegetables, their warmth clashing with the tension, crackling like a live wire. My packed suitcase, David's old leather case from the guest room, stood by the door, a symbol of my imminent departure and reclaimed identity. At 60, I'd poured my life into this Virginia home, but Evan's greed and Sophia's cruelty had pushed me to this moment. The letter in my pocket, David's promise of freedom, steadied my resolve, its words a quiet roar in my heart. The pre-Thanksgiving dinner was a facade, guests murmuring over plates, the scent of sage and cinnamon heavy in the air. I sliced the pie, my hands steady, each cut a defiance against Evan's abuse, his shove, his get out from the kitchen, and Sophia's sneers. I'd sacrificed my teaching career for Evan and Maggie, drained my savings for Evan's failed startup, but tonight I'd reclaim my worth. Evan, 38, sat at the table's head, his face hard with desperation. "Sign the deed tonight, Mom," he demanded, his voice slicing through the clink of forks. Sophia, 35, leaned back, her smirk sharp. "This is our house now," she sneered, her ambition masking insecurity. I set the pie down, my eyes meeting Evan's, my resolve a steel rod. Maggie, 35, stood, her guilt from missing my sacrifices, her graduation I worked through, now afire. "You're wrong, Evan," she snapped, her voice fierce, her redemption shining. Robert, 62, folded his newspaper, his regret for years of detachment clear. "Nora's done enough," he said, his tone rough, aligning with me after I'd supported his career. Grace, 15, cheered, "Go, Gran!" Her loyalty, woven through nights of David's stories, was a beacon. The guests fell silent, their eyes wide, the candlelight trembling. I pulled the letter from my pocket, my voice steady, a river breaking free. "David left me the house and savings," I read, each word a hammer. "I'm transferring it and cutting you off." Evan roared, "You can't!" His fists slamming the table, plates rattling. Sophia's smirk vanished, her face paling. "You're pathetic, Nora." Their verbal abuse, Evan's justification, "I deserve this house," was a desperate claw at control, but it only fueled my triumph. The audience in my heart would cheer, their indignation at Evan's greed and Sophia's mockery turning to satisfaction. Maggie's eyes shone with pride. Robert's nod was firm, and Grace's cheer echoed, a chorus of support. The door opened, and Samuel Carter, 65, stepped in, his calm presence cutting through the chaos. Our longtime family lawyer, his steady voice confirmed, "It's legal, Evan." Lydia, 58, stood nearby, her nod a quiet victory, her estrangement from her daughter mirroring my fight. I gripped the letter, its paper warm, David's promise. Stay free, a vow I'd kept. "You'll manage without me," I said, my voice clear, grabbing my suitcase's handle. The leather creaked, a sound of departure, my heart pounding with empowerment. Before I spoke, I noticed a drawing on the table, slipped there by Grace before dinner, a sketch of me standing tall, her pencil capturing my strength. My throat tightened, her love a generational bond no one could break. I tucked it into my purse, beside David's letter, my resolve afire against Evan's roar and Sophia's stunned silence. Did they ever love me, or only what I gave? The question lingered, my triumph bittersweet. The candlelight's flicker a mirror to my heart's quiet victory. Evan's face crumpled, his desperation laid bare, his justification a hollow echo. Sophia's panic, her hands trembling, exposed her insecurity, her control shattered. Maggie's support completed her arc, her guilt transformed into pride. Robert's alignment, his regret for years of silence, was a weight lifted. Grace's drawing was a testament to our bond, her joy a spark of hope. Lydia's presence tied her encouragement to this moment, her relief palpable. Samuel's confirmation deepened his role, a steady hand in my rebellion. I turned to the door, the suitcase rolling behind me, its wheels a soft hum against the hardwood. The guests watched, their murmurs hushed, the pie's sweetness now distant. What makes a reckoning? It's not just truth, but the courage to claim it, to walk away from those who'd erase you. David's suitcase was my symbol, packed with his photo, my quilt, my worth. I stepped into the hall, the rain's faint patter through an open window, a gentle farewell. Maggie's voice followed, "Mom, you're amazing." Robert's hand grazed mine, a silent apology. Grace's cheer lingered, a melody in my heart. I reached the porch, the November air crisp, the wreath's cedar scent mixing with the rain's damp chill. My suitcase stood ready, my letter delivered, my place reclaimed. But Grace's voice stopped me, a whisper from the doorway. "Wait, Gran." My heart skipped. her drawing heavy in my purse, her loyalty a question unanswered. What did she want to say? I turned, the candlelight spilling out, my empowerment a quiet triumph, the storm outside now a distant rumble. Evan's roar, Sophia's panic, and the letter's truth echoed. But Grace's whisper held me, a new chapter waiting. I stood still, the suitcase's weight grounding me, Lydia's nod and Maggie's pride a chorus behind me. Robert's regret, Samuel's calm, and Grace's love wove a new family, one I'd chosen. The rain's soft hum was a promise, my resolve a fire no one could douse. I waited, my eyes on Grace, her whisper a spark in the dark, my heart ready for whatever came next. What was she holding back? I walked away, suitcase rolling, snow falling. Was this my new beginning? The wheels crunched through the light snow blanketing the Virginia street, each step a release from the weight of my old life. In my mind, the candle I never lit at that first tense dinner flickered, a symbol of the light I'd reclaimed. My breath puffed in the November chill, David's leather suitcase a steady companion, packed with his photo and my quilt. At 60, I'd given everything to my family, my teaching career, my savings, only to face Evan's abuse and Sophia's sneers. Now, with David's letter securing my home and savings, I was free. Grace's whisper, "Wait, Gran," still echoed from the porch, her drawing of me standing tall tucked in my purse, a testament to her loyalty. Maggie's voice followed, "We're sorry, Mom," her 35 years of guilt softening into redemption. Robert, 62, added, "Nora, we mean it." His regret for years of detachment a new note in our story. I nodded, my heart aching but resolute, the snow dusting my coat like a fresh start. Their apologies were a warmth against the cold, but Evan's greed and Sophia's cruelty had pushed me to this moment. I kept walking, the suitcase's hum a quiet anthem of liberation. Back at the house, Evan stormed into the dining room, his face ashen. At 38, his failed startup's debts loomed, my sacrifices fueling his entitlement. He snatched my letter from the table, its words, property transfer, financial cutoff, searing his plans. "She's ruined us!" He raged, his voice cracking, the apple pie's sweetness now sour. Sophia, 35, clutched her scarf, her ambition crumbling. "What now?" she gasped, her panic exposing the insecurity beneath her social climbing. Samuel Carter, our 65-year-old lawyer, stood calm, his voice steady. "It's hers, Evan, all legal." Evan fumbled for his phone, dialing me, his plea desperate. "You can't do this, Mom." I hung up, my finger firm, the snow's soft fall drowning his voice. His abuse, shoves, insults lingered, stoking the audience's indignation. But my silence was my power. The taxi's headlights cut through the snow, carrying me to Willow Creek Retirement Community. Warm lights glowed from a cozy lounge, the scent of cinnamon tea welcoming me as I stepped inside. Soft jazz played, its notes weaving through the crackle of a fireplace, a stark contrast to the thunder of Evan's threats. I signed in, the manager's smile kind, and entered my suite, the suitcase's wheels quiet on the hardwood. I unpacked David's photo, setting it on a shelf, its frame catching the firelight. Sipping cinnamon tea, I felt free, my heart blooming with liberation, though Evan's plea stirred a fleeting hurt. As I settled, my phone buzzed, a voicemail from Evan, left before I left, unnoticed in the chaos. "I didn't mean it, Mom," his voice cracked, a shadow of the boy I'd raised. My throat tightened, the words a faint echo of remorse, but too late against his greed, his smashed painting, his shove. I deleted it, my fingers steady. Grace is drawing a reminder of who I was, strong, worthy. The voicemail was a twist, a glimpse of Evan's desperation, but my resolve held firm. The audience's satisfaction at his downfall, a quiet cheer. What makes freedom? It's not just leaving, but choosing who you carry forward, the love you keep whole. David's letter gave me the house, but my heart chose my path. Grace's loyalty and Maggie's redemption my true home. I trace the photo's frame, the fireplace's warmth wrapping around me, my hurt fading under liberation's glow. Maggie's apology, Robert's regret, and Grace's drawing wove a new family, one that saw me. Evan's greed and Sophia's panic were a distant storm, their control shattered by my stand. Maggie's voice lingered. "We're sorry." Her support a bridge rebuilt. Robert's regret, his shift from silence completed his arc, a quiet vow to stand by me. Grace's drawing, her joyful cheer, anchored my maternal love, a generational bond no greed could break. The jazz's melody softened, the tea's steam curling like hope. I sat by the window, snow falling outside, each flake a piece of my new beginning. The hurt of Evan's abuse, his get out, faded. My liberation a fire no plea could dim. I glanced at the table where a letter from Evan had arrived, unopened, delivered by the staff. Its envelope loomed, his handwriting jagged, a question I wasn't ready to answer. My heart skipped, the voicemail's echo. I didn't mean it, clashing with his actions. Can I forgive without forgetting? The question hung, my fingers brushing the letter, the fireplace's crackle a steady rhythm. I set it aside, my eyes on David's photo, my liberation a quiet triumph. What did he want now? The snow's soft fall filled the silence, the lounge's warmth a new home. Maggie's hope, Robert's remorse, and Grace's devotion were my family, chosen and true. Evan's desperation and Sophia's panic were a chapter closed, their voices drowned by the jazz's gentle hum. I leaned back, the suitcase unpacked, my heart light, the letter's mystery a shadow I'd face another day. Grace's whisper, "Wait, Gran," lingered, a spark of love in the snow, my liberation a path forward. What was Evan asking, and did it matter? As I sat in the quiet of my guest room, the rotary phone's final click echoed, Willow Creek's promise of a new beginning warming my heart. The sting of Evan's greed and Sophia's mockery faded, replaced by the resolve to reclaim my worth, a fire kindled by David's letter and Grace's fierce loyalty. In life, family bonds are tested, but love, true love, endures when we choose to see each other's sacrifices. Maggie's tentative support and Lydia's encouragement taught me that forgiveness begins with understanding, a lesson we can carry into our own homes. Like a quilt stitched with care, our connections hold strong when we mend them with patience. If this story touched you, please share your thoughts or a memory in the comments below. Your voice weaves our community together.